everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Elliot Webber and welcome to episode 3 for the 2023 BTCC edition of Webber's Race Roundup. Yes guys, that is right, we've had another round ticked off the BTCC calendar, and of course it was round 3 last weekend at Snetterton. I was there. Of course, if you haven't seen it, please go check out my new trackside video from when I was at Snetterton. I got very sunburned, as you can probably still see. But yeah, it was another pretty good BTCC event. I wouldn't say it's the best of the season so far, but it was another really good couple of races. Of course, well, some were pretty good, some weren't as good as others, but then we had another amazing race 3, which we will of course talk about. But of course, as always, let's start off with qualifying. So, of course, kicking off with qualifying from the Saturday, as I mentioned, go check out my trackside video where I was there. Yeah, a lot to talk about. Of course, it was once again intervened with the sight of the red flag. In fact, 2 red flags, I believe. Starting it off with Nick Halstead dropping oil at the very start of the session, which causing multiple cars to spin off, including Colin Turkington, Dexter Patterson, Adam Morgan as well. So yeah, multiple cars went off. Luckily, all of them, bar Nick Halstead, managed to take the restart of the session to continue, where a few minutes later, Dan Camish would have an off, and that would be the end of his qualifying session, where he was unable to put a lap in, which unfortunately meant that the then championship leader had to start from 25th on the grid, so he would have to make a lot of ground if he wanted to hold on to that championship lead. Of course, as some of you may know, he does not. But yeah, so a big shame for Camish, not a real shame for Nick Halstead. But it was a record-breaking qualifying session, as the lap record originally held by Tom Ingram would be broken by the pole sitter, of course. And that pole sitter was, of course, Ash Sutton. Yep, once again, he pulled it out of the bag. Ash Sutton now holds the official BTCC lap record at Snetterton, something that, honestly, I'm not surprised by, and I don't think a lot of people are surprised by it, purely because Ash Sutton this season has been the best driver on the grid when it comes to talent, when it comes to racecraft, when it comes to pretty much everything. Ash Sutton has been the best driver on the grid so far. So to see him on pole, I wasn't surprised. The Napa car, whatever Pete Osborne and the Motorbase team have done to that Napa car, they've made it work, and that is why every single Napa driver is up there in most qualifying sessions. So it was Ash Sutton on pole position. Tom Ingram would take 2nd place, his best qualifying of the season so far, what would as well be the best weekend of his current championship defence season. And Colin Turkington back up there in P3, a sort of a return to form for Colin Turkington this weekend. It was great to see Colin back up there, of course, as we know, back this year, fighting for what might be his 5th BTCC championship. So yeah, that was the top 3. Now let's talk about my star of the session, and I'm gonna give it to 2 people. So my stars of the session, that would, of course, be Ash Sutton. And then second of all, it would be Ricky Collard, who this season has really turned it up this year. Of course, as we know, Brands Hatch, where he should have won his first race. But even so, Ricky Collard this year has been the best Toyota driver, I think. I think he has been much better than George Gamble, who is still getting used to front-wheel drive, I think. And then, yeah, Rory Butcher, who whilst would have a great weekend this weekend, hasn't really been there. He hasn't been as high up as Ricky Collard has. So, yeah, whatever Ricky Collard's done over the winter, again, it's clearly working. So, Ricky Collard, of course, once again in the top 10. I believe he was in the top 6. I can't remember, but I'll put it in the edit where he was. So, yeah, my stars of the session, Ash Sutton and Ricky Collard. Now, let's move on to race number 1. So the first race of 3 at Snetterton kicked off with, of course, Ash Sutton on pole position. And to be honest, I was going to say he never looked back, but he probably had to a little bit at the end of the race. But for the majority of the race, it was just Ash Sutton just zooming into the distance for the majority of the race. I believe he was on the medium tyre to start with, because of course this weekend Goodyear had introduced a hard tyre this week, or well, technically brought it back, the hard tyre, but this time the hard tyre, the soft tyre and the medium tyre would all be available. Every driver had to use at least one of those tyres in one of the 3 races. So for example, let's say Ash Sutton, who I believe was on the mediums for race 1, and then the BMWs were on the soft tyre, I believe, for race 2, or was it race 1? I think the BMWs were on the softs for race 1. Again, correct me if I am wrong. But now you're probably wondering, well, if Ash Sutton won, but he had to look behind him in the last couple of laps, who was chasing him? Well, it would be none other than Jake Hill. He would, of course, finish second in his Laser Tools BMW. And again, not a real surprise. And yeah, it is a welcome one. Jake Hill is someone who really needs to step up his game at the minute. Of course, my personal pick for the championship is Jake Hill. Might have to change that. So yeah, Jake, great to see him back on the podium and adding to his current trophy collection. So it was great to see Jake Hill back on the podium where he should belong. He, of course, very well and truly could have won that first race. I do think he was on the soft tyre as well as the rest of the BMW guys. So he was chasing down Ash Sutton for the majority of the closing laps of the race. And yeah, it was a very close finish in race 1. It was I think it was about a tenth or two between the 2 drivers. So yeah, an excellent battle between Ash and Jake. Jake, of course, in race 1 pulled off an excellent move round the outside at Nelson on the grass as well. It was a phenomenal move. I believe that was race 1. I'm pretty sure it was race 1, but yeah, even so, it was an excellent move by Jake Hill. So yeah, that was Jake Hill P2, and P3 would be Colin Turkington. No Tom Ingram on the podium, unfortunately. He had a very poor start, something that was pretty consistent throughout this weekend. A pretty poor start from Tingram meant he lost second and third. So yeah, Colin Turkington, once again back on the podium, a spare 15 points for him, really helps him in the championship, because of course after taking that first win at Brands Hatch, he of course does need to get more podiums and be a bit more consistent like the old Colin Turkington that we've seen in previous years. So yeah, the top 3 was Ash Sutton, Jake Hill and Colin Turkington. Now, my driver of the race for race number 1. Some of you might be probably expecting me to say Ash Sutton. No, I'm not going to say Ash Sutton as my race 1 driver of the day, because my race 1 driver of the day is Jake Hill. Yep, I'm giving Jake Hill my driver of the race purely because he had an excellent start, made an excellent move on his teammate Colin Turkington, got his elbows out round the outside, 2 wheels on the grass, rallycross stuff. Pretty much an excellent move by Jake Hill to move into second place, and then probably just needed one more lap to pass Ash Sutton on what could have been his first win of the season. But his first win will still have to wait. But yeah, Jake Hill, of course, gets my driver of the race. Now let's move on to a pretty dull race 2. So race number 2, and what was definitely the most boring race of the season so far. To put it bluntly, nothing happened, to be honest. There wasn't a lot going on, but there was some pretty good on-track action. Of course, we had some guys coming from the back of the grid, moving up to the front. One person in question would be Ricky Collard. I will talk about him later on, though. So yeah, so let's get pretty much straight into the top 3 results. Ash Sutton would take a dominant victory. It was pretty much... that's how it was in race 2. Absolutely dominant from Ash Sutton. What was just a brilliant race and a brilliant weekend. And also what was, I should say, it was his 4th win in a row. He, of course, winning race 2 and 3 at Brands Hatch, and then winning races 1 and 2 at Snetterton. It would be 4 races in a row, something that I don't think has been done in the current 3-race format. So yeah, utterly dominant performance by Ash Sutton so far at Snetterton. Just an unreal job by him and, of course, the Napa guys. I think, yeah, if Ash Sutton is going to win this championship, I wouldn't be surprised if it's before race 30. So yeah, and then again, not much overtaking at the front. Jake Hill would take P2, a second podium at the weekend in his Laser Tools BMW, and then of course Colin Turkington would round off the top three again. So you're probably wondering, well, where does Ricky Collard come into this? Well, unfortunately, in race one, more bad luck would come Ricky's way. It would be a mechanical DNF for Ricky Collard. A huge shame for someone who is very deserving of a maiden victory. He very much deserves that win, so hopefully he gets that soon. So yeah, Ricky, unfortunately, with that DNF, had to start at the back, which would mean he would start on the soft tyre, meaning he would be able to carve his way through the field fairly easily. It would be easy until we came up to the back of a Vauxhall Astra with the name Taylor Smith on the back of it, because it was an epic battle between Ricky Collard and Aaron Taylor Smith. Aaron fending for his life, pretty much defending from the black, red and white Toyota of Ricky Collard in what was an amazing defence by Aaron Taylor Smith. Thoroughly deserved. What was an excellent drive, and I think showing off that whatever, again, I keep saying it, but whatever Power Max have done over the winter is also working. Of course, we saw the amazing performance by Andrew Watson at Donington, and now we're seeing some more amazing performances by Aaron Taylor Smith. Of course, something that should be expected by Aaron. I believe Aaron Taylor Smith is one of the most underrated drivers on the grid, in my personal opinion. I think he's someone who, of course, let's not forget, a multiple-time race winner is Aaron Taylor Smith. So he knows what it takes to race in BTCC. He knows what it takes to defend positions, obviously. So yeah, it's something really great to see. Of course, Aaron Taylor Smith came back in 2021 in BTCC, had a bit of air to meh years at Team Hard, moved over to Power Max, and it seems like he's back where he belongs, fighting for top 10s, and who knows, maybe one day Aaron could be in with a shout of a reverse grid pole position, or maybe even a reverse grid win or podium. So I do think there's definitely podiums coming Power Max's way at least once this year. I'll be very surprised if Power Max do not get a podium this year in 2023. So my drivers of the race, who do they go to? Pretty simple. Aaron Taylor Smith and Ricky Collard. I would give it to Ash Sutton, but we've expected that from Ash now. Aaron Taylor Smith for his amazing defense in race 2, and Ricky Collard for his amazing car through the field until he got up to Aaron Taylor Smith. So yeah, Aaron Taylor Smith and Ricky Collard are my drivers of the race in race number 2. Now, wow, let's talk about the amazing race 3. So race number 3, and what definitely has to be up there as one of the races of the season, because man, oh man, this was such a good race. Like, it genuinely felt like I was watching BTCC from when I was a kid, when, you know, 2014, 2015, where there was overtakes all over the place. It was an amazing race, and I think put Snetterton back into some people's good books. Of course, for the past couple of years, Snetterton hasn't produced the best of touring car racing. There hasn't been many overtakes. You know, it's ever since it went to the 300 circuit, a lot of people have criticised the 300 layout due to, of course, now being a massive infield section, and yeah, not having much overtakes. But this race had it all. It had amazing overtakes. It had different strategies. Of course, talking about the 3 compounds rule this weekend, it was just amazing. And it started off with, of course, the reverse grid. Ash Sutton, the race 2 winner, would pick out number 6 on the grid, which meant only the top 6 would get reversed. Some people were disappointed for the fact that it wasn't a lower number, but I don't think anyone really cared after the race. And now, of course, with the top 6 being reversed, it would have meant that Stephen Jelly would take pole position. And a lot of people were expecting this to be another sort of a boring meh with a couple of overtakes. Oh no, because while Stephen Jelly would start on pole, he would not be on the podium. He wouldn't even be in the top 5 due to BMW going for a very weird strategy for BMW this weekend. And I think it was a very rare blunder from WSR. They follow me on Twitter, so WSR, please don't unfollow me for saying that. But yeah, I'm going to talk about BMW strategy at first, because I believe they went for the softs in race 1. They went for the mediums in race 2, fair enough. But then I believe they went for the hards in race 3, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. I believe that's what their strategy was. And if it was, not only that, it didn't make sense to put all 4 BMW guys on the same tyre in every single race. That just did not make sense to me in the slightest. Surely you'd want to have Turkington and Jake Hill on the best strategies, maybe put Adam Morgan on a good strategy, and then maybe put Jelly on the better strategy for race 3, because you've got 4 amazing drivers there, and it felt like that their talents weren't utilised purely because of the strategy. Yes, Hill and Turkington did get podiums, and very well done to them, but even so, it could have been so much more from a weekend where they had to perform to catch up to the Fords. So yeah, a bit of a blunder from WSR and BMW this weekend. I really hope that blunder doesn't carry over into Thruxton and into the remaining races. Hopefully they'll come back at Alton Park and Croft, which are 2 tracks that really suit the BMW. So yeah, a bit disappointing for BMW, but it would not be disappointing for Tom Ingram fans. Grumpy, I'm looking at you, because Tom Ingram, who has struggled these first few races, would finally take his first victory of 2023. His title charge officially starts, or his title defense officially starts. It would be, yes, Tom Ingram's first victory of 2023, and it would be another 2 firsts. It would be Rory Butcher's first podium of 2023. Great to see Toyota back up there. And it would, of course, be Dan Rowbottom's first podium of 2023. Not properly, though, because Dan Camish would come across the line to finish in, was it 2nd or 3rd? I believe it was 2nd. Yeah, it was. Dan Camish will cross the line in 2nd place in his Napa Ford in what was making up to be what was a pretty mediocre weekend, but Dan Camish very quietly was making his way through the field in races 1 and 2, and luckily would be in with a shout of the podium. Unfortunately, he was unable to catch Tom Ingram, but then his weekend went from bad to pretty good, and then down to worse, because in race 3, post-race, it was announced that Dan Camish had failed the ride height test, which meant he was automatically disqualified from the results, which meant he would lose his podium, and not only that, lose a chunk of points, not only to Tom Ingram, but also to Ash Sutton, who, let's not forget, has had some amazing few races recently. So that would mean that Dan Rowbottom, a different Dan in an Napa car, would take P3. Pretty good to see Dan Rowbottom up there, but at the same time, Rowbottom well and truly could have won this race. It was just a shame that a mistake going into Riches meant Tom Ingram would just take that gap and ease through into the lead, and then Tingram would not look back. It was great to see Tingram back up there, winning races, of course, in 2021 at Snetterton. He took his first Hyundai win. So yeah, the top 3 of race 3 was Tom Ingram for Accelerate, Rory Butcher for Toyota, and then Dan Rowbottom for Napa Ford. So, who is my driver of the race? And now, simply, I have to give it to this man, because he has struggled all year, and he had possibly the best race of, maybe not of his career, but certainly it was one of the best drives of his career performance-wise, which is why this race 3, my driver of the race is Josh Cook. And I think a lot of people are going to agree with me. It is because starting from the very, very back of the grid, dead last in race 3 at the start, and he made up 20 positions to finish P6, what would then be P5, due to Camish's disqualification. So 21 positions made in a 12-lap race. Yes, he was on the soft tyres, but you have to take into account that Honda is not where it should be at the minute, performance-wise. I'm just going to say performance-wise, that Honda is not where it should be. Josh Cook is someone who probably should be in this championship battle at the minute, and the fact that he hasn't even had a podium yet just shows how poorly that Honda's been. But I think One Motorsport, Team Dynamics, everyone at One Motorsport should be happy with their race 3 performance, because not only did Josh Cook get a top 5, Aidan Moffat would take his best finish of of the season. So a very good race 3 for One Motorsport. Hopefully Thruxton is where we see the return of the king, Josh Cook. He's back in his kingdom at Thruxton. Is the king of Thruxton, Josh Cook. So yeah, hopefully we see the Honda of old, you could say, at Thruxton, and of course the Josh Cook of old at Thruxton as well. That will be a really intriguing to see. But yeah, Josh Cook gets my race 3 driver of the race. Now let's wrap it up with my overall driver of the day. So my overall driver of the day. Now I could give this to a ton of people this weekend. It was a weekend where we saw almost everyone at some point on the TV. Very similar to Donington. Of course, that was different circumstances, however. But yeah, despite all the people I could give it to, I have to give it to Ash Sutton, purely because it was a phenomenal drive. Pole position, breaking the lap record. P1 race 1, P2 race 2, P4 race 3. Just unbelievable performance by Ash Sutton. Something that is very much so. I think whilst he hasn't got the record wins, he hasn't got the record championships yet, I undoubtedly now we have to consider Ash Sutton as one of the greatest touring car drivers to ever live. We have to put him into that GOAT conversation, because ever since he debuted, he has been either fighting for points, fighting for top 10s, fighting for podiums, fighting for wins. He was doing that since his first touring car race. I'm going to go back to his first touring car race in the MG days in 2016. In fact, I was re-watching a race on the ITV website from 2016. His first race, he finished P4. Fighting with Hondas, fighting with the BMWs in an MG as well, which, let's be honest, wasn't the best of cars once Jason Plato left the team. It was just Ash Sutton has been phenomenal in every single year, even when the Subaru was good, and even when it was bad. I don't know what it is with Ash Sutton, but he is the Max Verstappen of BTCC. I know some people don't like to hear that name, but yeah, you just have to look at the comparisons between the two. They are both two drivers who push themselves to the limit, and once they find that limit, they still try and beat that limit, and even then, the sky is the limit essentially between those two. Ash Sutton is someone who, he might get his 4th this year, he might not. But even so, if he does or he doesn't, we have to put Ash Sutton into one of the greatest touring car drivers to ever set foot in an NGT. Well, not even just in any touring car whatsoever. Ash Sutton has to be considered as one of the greats, which is why he gets my driver of the day once again, because I think he got it up in my Brands Hatch roundup. But yeah, that is Snetterton's race roundup. What was your opinions of the 3 races at Snetterton? Do you think Ash Sutton will win this championship? And what are your predictions for Thruxton? Will we see the King of Thruxton return? Thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, if you are new around here, be sure to like this video, share with your mates as well, because it of course does help my channel grow, because we are firmly on the road to 200 subscribers. I aim to have 200 subscribers by the BTCC summer break, so roughly August-ish we plan to have it, if not at least by the end of the year. That is something I'd like to hit. We are getting close. We're currently on 163 at time of recording, so hopefully we can get more subscribers. Please keep sharing, and also please check out some of my other videos, because some of them recently haven't been getting the views that I desire. I know I probably shouldn't be begging for views on here, but still, please go check out my other videos, because recently I'm the happiest I've been when it comes to my YouTube content creating. So yeah, please go check them out. Please just give them a like or anything like that, and please, as I keep saying, just please share, and also please press that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.